Hey, it's Brent Leary. It is Monday. It means it's another week of programming for the BBC. Not those guys. I always have to tell you, it's not the guys over in the UK. It's the Brent Broadcasting Channel. You should know it by now. I'm glad to remind you every now and then. But this is going to be a really cool conversation to kick off the week. I'm speaking with the CEO and founder of NerdWallet, Tim Chen. Tim, thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brent.
I wanted to have this conversation because of what you're doing to help try to get money into the right hands of people who could really use it and need it. Folks that usually kind of get left out of certain things. But you have this really great idea and you're putting your money where your mouth is. But before we get into that, I have to tell you, man, mostly what I know NerdWallet for is the commercials. You make some really good commercials.
Thank you. Yeah.
Because I didn't really know. I just enjoy the commercial so much. So why don't you tell people exactly what NerdWallet does?
Yeah, sure. NerdWallet's trying to help people make smarter money decisions. So there's kind of maybe two main things that keep you from being able to do well there sometimes. One is you just don't know what you don't know. Like some people might not realize when they should refinance or reshop their insurance or avoid taxes somehow, right? And so we definitely help with that. The second big problem in our industry is just there's a lot of sales intermediaries that sit between you and getting the right products for you. So it could be agents, brokers, advisors. They're not bad people. They're just doing their job, but they're also not trying to tell you if there's a better option out there. Or, and that can feel a little bit icky for people who are stuck in that process. So we try to bring power to the people and just put all the data, all the options out there in a really digestible way. So we do that for consumers and now for small businesses as well. As of December, we acquired a company that's super mission aligned called Fundera that focuses on small businesses.
Yeah. Very cool. So let's talk about there are people that were having a tough time with their finances and getting money to kind of exist and survive well before the pandemic. But what has the pandemic done to the folks that you usually try to help?
Yeah, it's a tale of two halves. I mean, we serve America pretty broadly. Based on all the research we've done and all the living rooms I've sat in across the country, about half the country's paycheck to paycheck. The other half has a cushion and they worry about other stuff, right? And so, yeah, the pandemic certainly has had a big impact on both. You've heard the term K-shaped recovery. For half the population, there's been a lot of stimulus, a lot of attempt at federal aid, which was effective, at least in the short term financially, even if it didn't really help fix the long-term issues that people face. And then for the other half, a lot of people have actually done quite well financially who are in the more fortunate half. With interest rates going down, you've got asset price inflation. People have made a ton of money in the stock market and all sorts of other avenues. Some businesses have really thrived. So it's just pretty mixed out there.
So, and right now there might be some people getting $1,400 in their direct deposit or in their mailboxes. So hopefully that'll continue on. But there's always been a case of folks who just didn't know how they could get available credit, the right kind of credit, or the best option. Like you were just talking about, sometimes it's a matter of just not knowing or just not being able to take advantage of those situations. Right. But your company just announced last week this kind of this thing that you're doing, this idea of putting your money where it'll actually get to the folks who help. Maybe you could talk about it. I know you're working with some different credit unions and this organization I had really never heard of before, Inclusive. But why don't you talk about why, first of all, why you wanted to do this program and really just kind of build out what the program is?
Sure. Yeah. I'll I guess I'll start with a quick primer on what the problem is that we see. I mean, I think the problem is that banks and credit unions they make a lot more money in high income neighborhoods than low income neighborhoods. And this is because they take your deposits from, local people, and they loan it back out to local businesses and individuals. It's like a business loan, a mortgage, a personal loan, that kind of thing. And in higher income communities, you've got a lot of pristine FICO scores, you've got a lot of collateral. It's just very easy to formulaically dish out loans. Lower income communities, you've got a lot of really creditworthy people. It might be your local bakery or your elementary school teacher that's, is solid. From a job security perspective, it takes more feet on the street to actually get to know these people, to, make those loans. And there are a lot of people who are actually doing this quite well. So credit unions serving low income communities are all across the country. And Inclusive is a network of 351 of these, and they can really help deploy capital more effectively. So, as we were internally looking at this, we kind of put 2 and 2 together. Our board wants us to keep a bunch of cash in reserve for a rainy day. That's going to be kind of the last money, the first money in, last money out. And I thought, hey, I wonder, maybe we could do something more effective with this cash than putting it in our commercial bank. And so we started looking around at rates, right? Turns out you can actually get the same rates, sometimes even slightly better, by investing in a local community credit union than you can at your bank. And so we got our board comfortable with this. And hey, capital is now flowing into communities that need it. I think there's kind of 2 approaches here companies can take. You can invest in your local community. That's great for, our employees love it. There was so much fire and passion when we announced this. So that's awesome. And, you can get volunteer opportunities in the community. Or the other approach you could take is you could ask Inclusive to help you seek out the most needy communities in the country. If you talk to Inclusive, they'll mention places like northern New Mexico, where there's a lot of reservations, not a lot of capital flowing in, and a lot of people in need of loans, right? So we're still trying to sort that out. We know it's going to be a big part of what we do going forward. And if I step back, the reason we thought NerdWallet could maybe help here is, what we're really good at is reaching a lot of people and helping them with smart money moves that they may just not know are an option, right? So there's a lot of corporate treasurers and CFOs out there who may not realize that this is a free lunch. Same rates, same, backed by the government, and make an impact, and employees will love it. So that's the message we're trying to spread here.
Well, and it seems like a lot of folks that are kind of in dire straits and in need of cash, they typically kind of depend on these these places, day loans, or these really short-term high interest kind of things. How will this be able to kind of combat that? How do you make sure that the folks actually know that this kind of thing is going on? Because if I'm getting this right, I hope I'm getting this right. It looks like you guys committed to moving $2 million into SelfHelp credit union. And I had never heard of that until I looked it up after getting this email from your folks. And that thing is that that company, it started in 2008, but it's actually a combination of credit unions that have been serving these local communities for decades at this point.
Right. Yeah. I mean, SelfHelp is a great example of a community development credit union. We thought they were really attractive because they have a focus on the Oakland area. They funded the first grocery store in West Oakland in 50 years, the community grocery. Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's stories like that to be told at all these credit unions. And yeah, it takes legwork to go find them. Just by happenstance, I was on the consumer advisory board at the Consumer Protection Financial Bureau with a senior person from SelfHelp, which is how we made the connection. But as we started digging in, we found more institutions, one in Berkeley and one in San Francisco, that we thought we would try to support as well. And I think the highest leverage point is actually getting other companies with a lot of cash involved as well. I did see, Netflix did make an announcement that they were moving some cash into, a more targeted bank. I think their positioning was Black-owned banks, but I mean, I think this is, there's a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram in terms of being able to, make a social impact with these deposits.
Were you spurred on by some of the social unrest that took place kind of at the beginning of the pandemic with the George Floyd situation, Ahmaud Arbery? Lots of frustration and lots of unrest, and it wasn't just the kind of the social aspects. There are people that are really financially distressed, and that kind of adds to the situation and creates a higher and a hotter kind of period of what's going on over this past year. Did that have any kind of play in that?
Truthfully, absolutely. I mean, internally that there was so much dialogue among the employees and in terms of what we could do. And, every town hall, there were questions about like, why can't we take action faster? What can we do? Right. And so, it's been a big amount of time since then. I wish we could have gotten this rolling sooner. Better late than never. And, right. I think, companies just have so many different priorities. I think what really happened for us internally was we started saying like, hey, now's the time to focus on a more organized corporate social responsibility program. There's never a great time. There's always competing priorities, but this is something that a lot of employees care about. I think the paradigm of employer-employee relationship is changing very rapidly. And, that certainly resonated over the last 12 months. And, it feels great, and it's a free lunch. So it was something that, just felt like something we had to do.
You talk a lot about how your employees, were saying, how come we can't help make this move faster? But what about your customers and your community? How is the relationship between NerdWallet and not only your employees, but the communities you serve? How has that changed?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, one of the massive trends you're seeing, at least in the investment management space, just as an example, is a demand for ESG oriented funds, right? Environmental, social impact, governance. And wow, the fund flows into those particular asset classes is huge, but it's not the fund managers driving this. It's really people putting their money where their mouth is. So, we help consumers with all sorts of different money questions. We've seen a huge uptick this year in people trying to figure out how to parse through these options and be more socially responsible with their investing, just as one example, right? And I think on the depository side, I think we need to raise awareness. I mean, typically we just let people sort things by interest rates on deposits, right? Maybe there's other dimensions that people care a lot about that we should be making transparent as well.
You say that you'd like to see other corporate entities kind of join in this kind of activity. Have you seen that? Have you had others come to you and say, hey, how do we get involved?
Yeah, we're starting to see a trickle. This is we're about a week into this, and we really hope that trickle becomes a huge flow. There's just, I think I read that there's something like $1 trillion in cash on the S&P 500 companies' balance sheets, right? And a lot of it's sitting in, the money center banks across the country. You can all day long, you can lend based on FICO score, but I think the really impactful stuff is, having those direct relationships with people, going out on a bit of a limb with someone who is a great credit risk, but maybe ran into some issues. I think those are the things that make a huge difference.
Can you talk about how credit unions operate differently than like the traditional big banks, and how kind of leveraging or putting money into them actually helps communities more than what goes on with these big banks? Because it seems like a lot of the smaller folks don't have the relationships with the big banks that you need in order to really, get the best opportunity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can speak generally. Credit unions are nonprofits. They're cooperatives between their members. A lot of credit unions will return surplus profits back to all their members at the end of every period. What this does mean is that they're not as efficiency oriented as banks. So a bank may think about it very much in terms of just chasing high quality asset growth and seeking out very low cost sources of funding. And hey, if that's easier to do in New York City than in rural Arkansas, that's where I'm going to direct my marketing team, right? Credit unions are very community oriented. They have branches, they're serving specific communities. The origin story of credit unions really came around, things like a bunch of steel workers got together and formed a credit union, or a bunch of people in a local community got together and formed a credit union. And so, yeah, by virtue of that, they have much more feet on the street. They're integrated in the communities. The people who are working at these credit unions are often members of the community. Sometimes they do this with part of their time, not as their full-time job, right? And so, over the past 10 or 20 years, a lot of them have struggled as big tech and big data and software, infrastructure software has really driven efficiency at the big banks. They've struggled to keep up. So I think there's a lot to be lost if we don't do a better job empowering them to continue to do what they do.
It just seems like helping, not helping the credit unions, but leveraging the credit unions who do have a much more empathetic relationship to community than big banks who are kind of driven by those numbers. That not only impacts the individuals that live in the community, but that impacts the overall. Do you see this helping, like, getting money into the community, and then it kind of rifles around, because dollars, once they enter the community, maybe they have an opportunity to stay in the community and help, kind of lift every boat, so to speak?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely a recirculation effect within communities. I mean, if you fund a grocery store, you're hiring from the community. You're bringing hopefully lower pricing and better selection to the community as well. And yeah, I mean, there's such a multiplicative effect. I think that's why capital flight is, such a big and problematic issue. And, I mean, the nerdy optimizer in me also finds it pretty irritating. Credit unions often have better rates than your local bank. They're nonprofits, so they don't need to have, they have a bigger spread to work with on their, both on depository rates and lending rates, right? They earn the spread between the two. So yeah, they're just great places to look, even if you're just out for your wallet. That's it. So
nice. Well, yeah. And then so you're committed, dollars, and you're committed to kind of helping get the money in the right hands. What kind of, do you have an educational aspect of this? Letting folks know, hey, this is here. This is how you can take advantage of it. Here's how it's different than trying to go to a big bank. It may be a little easier for you to get this. How does the educational piece work?
Yeah, absolutely. We, we're a company known for our content. Hopefully people find the content digestible, empowering, easy to understand. So yeah, we have content about this across our site. I think the big issue that people face in our industry is that it's extremely expensive to get consumers' attention. And so you see banks spending a huge piece of their annual budgets on marketing, everything from Super Bowl ads to naming stadiums to things like that, right? And so, NerdWallet is unique in that we have this base of, call it 100 million plus people coming straight to us every year, seeking our help. And I think that's where we can uniquely help out. So for example, if you're out there seeking a payday loan, we've got a payday loan alternatives page, many options, which consist of contacting your local credit union. And, we put some of those options into the world. So there's things like that, we can use our platform to really disseminate information that might help people save a buck or two.
Nice. Now, you just said it's only been announced at least last week or so. But let's look out a year from now. What does success look like for you from your perspective in this starting this program a year from now?
Yeah, to me, I mean, it's such a win-win. I'd love, most big companies out there to have 1%, 2%, 3% of their cash balance supporting their local communities and earning an equal, if not better rate. I mean, it's just a win-win, right? So, it's easy to try to sell something that you think is good for everyone involved. And I have a lot of passion around that. So I'll probably be harassing and annoying other CEOs I know over the coming months to try to spread the message. Yeah.
No, that's great. I think you need to harass away. If I can help harass too, because it's like you said, I think it's a win-win. The big picture. What does the big picture look like? Let's say 5 years from now, when this has had a chance to reach as many people as it could in 5 years. What do you hope is accomplished?
Yeah, I hope there's a vibrant reinvestment happening in local communities. More broadly, the thing that keeps me going with our mission is just, it just irritates me when there's, like if you were to watch someone about to make a costly mistake, would you say something? That's kind of like the feeling I have all the time when I'm trying to think about us helping consumers or small businesses. So for us, it's more broad than putting your deposit somewhere impactful. There's a lot of different things that I think people make mistakes on, and so I'd love to help people broadly on that.
And of course, a lot of the people that get help from a personal consumer standpoint, those are the kind of folks that'll eventually, once if they get an opportunity, they start businesses and they start employing people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the entrepreneurs are people who see problems locally, right? Like you're never going to go start an HR software company unless you've dealt with HR software issues, right? You're never going to go start a grocery store in a neighborhood unless you know that neighborhood and think there's an opportunity to really slide in there. So the entrepreneurs have to come from communities throughout the country. So enabling them is a pretty noble cause.
And do you see opportunities to potentially expand into, maybe not the exact same kind of setup here, but any kind of ways to kind of leverage this and do something to kind of pivot on top of what you've already done?
Yeah, I don't think there's much of a business opportunity there for us. But I mean, we do, for example, help small businesses figure out, should I get an SBA loan? Should I do a merchant cash advance? Should I do a factoring or a receivables line? So we help with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think this is purely in the camp of corporate social responsibility for NerdWallet.
Nice. So where can people go to learn more about what you're doing in this area, but also just in general, NerdWallet? Because I was on your YouTube channel. You got some really good videos up there as well.
Yeah. Please email socialimpact@nerdwallet.com or capital@inclusive, I believe.org. Inclusive with a V, no VE. And yeah, we'll point you in the right direction. That's really it.
I just want to say this. I think what you're doing is great, and it sets a great example for what companies. Maybe there are companies that are trying to figure out what to do. I hope that they see what you're doing and inquire how they can do something along those lines or help out. I get a chance to speak to a lot of companies, and they're doing, some of them are doing great things, and then there are others that are like, I really wish we had a better handle on how we could really help our customers. I think this provides a really great example. So this is great, Tim. It's been a pleasure meeting you. And like I said, I still love those commercials are funny. Do you have your hand in do you have your hand in those commercials?
No, that's not my area of expertise.
Yeah. Well, no, this has been great. And I would love to circle back around just to see how things are going with this. Because I just hope that once again, you set the kind of the example that other companies could come in and help. Because to me, it's great. You get the money in the hands of people that can help, that have the relationships with the local folks. It just seems so logical, but sometimes, we're too busy looking past the logical to the things we think are really important and complex.
Right.
I think this is great. So Tim, thanks again. And thank you guys for joining me. And I'll be back later this week. I know I got watching Amazon, and I think I got CRM players, and you'll get tired of seeing me anyway, but see you again. Talk to you guys later.
All right. Thanks for having me, Brent.